Welcome to this episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. I'm Aric.
And I'm Angie.
We are married with a ton of kids.
We have 6 kids total. He has 3 and I have 3.
My name's Hallie and I love riding horses.
I'm Lexi and I love agriculture.
My name's Carter and I love eating.
My name's Chase and I love lifting weights.
My name's Summer and I love spending my parents' money.
I'm Dane and I love baseball.
Our show is about our blended, blessed, and always a mess life. And our hope is if you find yourself in the same situation we are in, that by sharing our story, all the fun and all the mess, the challenges we are experiencing, it will give you some inspirations, laughs, and community, knowing you are not alone in this mess.
We appreciate you spending time with us. Let's dive in.
Welcome to this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. And this is the first ever episode about a child that has been continued. We've had one other continued episode with our friend Lynn Roush, a counselor, none about the kids. So as Hallie would say, that's because I'm better than everyone else. And so here we are with episode number 2 of Hallie's still here, the signs. She is showing us signs. She's giving us signs. And you know, you were ending the last episode and talking about Hallie mentoring that young girl. And we have had several people reach out to us over the last several weeks that things we're sharing about Hallie are helping them to get kids or themselves out of relationships. And there's a part of me that thinks that Hallie is happy that she knows she's doing more from heaven than she could have done at earth to help other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally. Yeah.
Like we know, we now know a lot of things we didn't know before, things we thought, but we didn't know. And I think she is in heaven doing more for young people here on earth and even adults than she could have done. And she knew, I'm just going to say this, she knew from seeing things, she was in a relationship she didn't know how to get out of. And now that she's out of it, she's using this heavenly platform to help other people. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's taking the pain and turning it into purpose, right? And being able to be Hallie's voice. You know, I tell my kids all the time, I'm connected to your soul. I know you.
You know your kids.
I know them to their core. I knew Hallie to her core, who she was as a person. Like I watched her grow. We talked all the time. And yeah, I think that she had a voice here, but I know what she wants her voice to be.
100%.
So I'm just gonna plow through and shine her light, like we've said on our social platforms, no matter how hard it is. Because I will tell you, and I've shared this with people that I'm close to. Like I feel like my body weighs 1,000 pounds. Like for me to get up and get out of bed, it's like moving 1,000 pounds because my body's saying stop. But I also am so fueled for Hallie's voice that I'm not going to stop, even though I literally would just love to crawl in a freaking hole and never come back out.
Angie's doing positive things. People ask me all the time, is she taking care of herself? Should she be doing these things? She spends, I think she's doing it. I keep telling her, I'm like, you're inside the bottle and I'm outside this bottle watching you. And I think you're doing a good job of taking the time to grieve where you're alone. And you're also taking the time to be around others and take positive steps. And you're seeing a counselor and you're listening to the right kind of podcasts and you're visiting with friends who are lifting you up and doing the right things. So I do think that, yes, Angie is taking care of herself in the best way that she possibly can. Because I do get a lot of questions from people that are worried about you in that regard. But you are, I've said this for a long time, you're superhuman. And you get up and you're doing more things than anybody else in this situation would do. I remember when my dad died, and that's different, right? It was my dad. It wasn't my child. I didn't get out of bed for a long, long time. And I drank way too much, and I did all the things wrong, okay?
Yeah, I haven't had
You haven't had a drink?
Yeah. Alcohol beverage since before Hallie passed.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, you're getting up and doing positive things every single day.
I have other kids. That's the thing. It's like I'm always going to be Hallie's mom. I still feel like I'm her mom, even though she's not here. So I still want to protect her. I still want to help her. I still want to be there for her. And then I have all the other kids that I'm not going to not show up for them. So that's also my fuel.
And frankly, let's be honest, I mean, they're worried about you, right?
I know, and that breaks my heart too. And that's such a hard balance. Like, how much do you show your pain? How much do you hide it? Because I told you that early on. I'm like, I do not want my kids to worry about me.
And we go back to the last podcast where you talked about how Hallie was very real and sitting in the suck and the sadness.
So
and so
they've
there's a
seen me.
balance for you here where you let the kids know that it does suck and you're in pain, but you're also pushing through for them. You're making all their events. You're helping them do whatever they need you to do. But your kids and my kids, they're all showing up for you too. That's been a beautiful thing about our crew. Obviously, this podcast has really changed from being about a blended family and to what we were talking about with Hallie's passing. Our crew is showing up for Angie, and it's beautiful to see each of the different kids show up in different ways. Your kids are showing up. My kids are showing up. I mean, we've got a real family here. I said that, when Hallie passed away, I said, I know some people think that this family's not the same as a real traditional family. This is every bit as good of a family. We are every bit as close. We are every bit as powerful. And I never feel in this that everybody misses and loves Hallie, whether it's Lexi or Carter or Dane compared to Summer and Chase. I love and miss Hallie. Nobody's pain's ever compared to Angie's. I tell people that all the time, right? So it doesn't matter who that is.
But everybody was so connected, and a piece of us is missing.
It's gone. The crew isn't the same. The crew's not the same. That hurts. That hurts us all. She was the leader of the kids and the crew. It's hard. It sucks. Carter said this week, leader is his word for 2023. And it's not because he's trying to pass his sister Lexi, but he knows he's the kid at home. Lexi's at college. He's the kid at home. And he's got to show up for his younger siblings better than he has before. And he's getting that from Hallie. He's not getting that from Carter or me or you. That's Carter leaning on his big sister and having the time with her in his alone time to know it's his time to stand up and step up. And that's beautiful. That beautiful tragedy that we're dealing with right now. Whew, okay. We're both teary-eyed. Let's talk about the signs. Let's go back to part 2 of the signs. Okay. Really good stuff. And we ended last week on how she wanted to start mentoring. And that would have been something that she was going to be absolutely fantastic at. And that started to help us to learn from. We started to hear from people at Mizzou, students, coworkers, old people from high school. And I'll let you talk about this because you had a lot more direct contact with each and every one of these people. But it was unbelievable to hear the impact she was having that she would never brag or tell. So in some cases, probably she didn't even know she was having the impact on some of these people.
Yeah, gosh, it goes back to like grief too, and everybody handles it different. Like I've had a lot of people share, hey, I lost a sibling and my mom completely like shut down and we can never talk about it. Like I've heard people share that. And I've also had a lot of people say, keep talking about her. Like that keeps a memory alive. And I will say for me, I want to know everything. Like I want to hear every story. And I've loved that where people have reached out and said, hey, I had class with her and she was always, it was super fun in class. Or I even met with her boss at her work, which I never would have known the people. But there was one lady that Hallie always talked about. I'm like, that's the person I want to meet. I want to talk to her. And so that was awesome just to hear her perspective at her employment, right? But there was one person in my mind, I never said it out loud, that I wanted to meet with. I just didn't know how to contact that person. I only knew the person's first name. And so about a week or two after Hallie passed, gosh, it was a shit show of a week. But
so many kids had sports that week.
Yes, every night was like sports. And on Monday night, it was late and we had Chase and Summer in the car. And nights are hard. So I'm already starting to struggle as we're driving home. And I said, okay, tomorrow night on Tuesday night, we don't have anything, right? Like, Summer, you've got practice after school, and then we're going to be at home. And Chase is like, whoa, I got a wrestling meet.
I was like Carter's got basketball.
I don't have it on my calendar. And he goes, well, it got moved. It was a Wednesday night, now it's Tuesday night. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, so, all right, I'm going to go to his wrestling meet. And I never thought anything else about it. Also, when I am out in public or I'm at the kids' sporting events, I feel what everybody else feels. So when they feel helpless and sad, like I feel that on top of how I feel. And so sometimes after a long day, like if I'm at a kid's event, like I'm just going to sit off by myself. Like I don't want to talk to anybody. And so this was his first event I was going to by myself because Aric was going to Carter's, which is okay. I'm going to drive there. I need a little time to myself anyway. So I walk into this wrestling meet, and I don't sit with the parents from the school that my son goes to. I purposely sit kind of across the aisle with some strangers because I just don't want to
be alone.
I just don't want to talk to anybody.
We talked to everybody the night before at his wrestling and summer's basketball. You were talked out.
So I sit behind this mom and dad, and I've said this before on here, like wrestling is so hard for me to watch. It's such a vulnerability for the wrestlers because they're out there, one-on-one for everybody to see. And Chase is wrestling so hard for his sister, so hard. So when he loses, it's just like, it's gut-wrenching for me on top of being like nerve-wracking to watch. I don't know if any other moms are like that, but I cannot hardly, it stresses me out.
Sure.
So his first match is up and they start, and I realize that the family's sitting right in front of me. It's their son, Chase is wrestling. So I'm cheering for Chase. They're cheering for their son. It was a good match, but Chase lost. So I'm immediately, I'm a mess anyway. So tears are running down my face. And the dad turns around to me and says, "Hey, your son did a really good job." But then he notices I'm crying and he kind of just does a double take and kind of looks at me. And I just, for whatever reason, say, "Well, I'm just super proud that he's wrestling because he lost his sister a week and a half ago." I don't even know why I felt compelled to tell this guy this, but I did. Mm-hmm. And then I added on that she was 20 years old. Like, why did I have to state the age?
God.
I don't know. And his wife turns around, looks at me, and she's like, "Hallie?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I'm Trista. I'm her advisor, academic advisor at Mizzou." And I literally lost my shit.
This is a one person Angie's been wanting to get a hold of.
This is who I wanted to talk to because she was Hallie's academic advisor for 3 years. The beautiful picture of her for her scholarship fund. It's my favorite. It's her dad's favorite picture too of her. She's sitting in my office. She's got this. She always rocked these super cute headbands. She's got a gold headband on, Mizzou's shirt, and she's just sitting there. So cute. That was her freshman orientation, and that's the first time she met with Trista, and she's been with her for 3 years. I mean, I tackled her. I don't even, the poor lady. I mean, I jumped up because it caught me so off guard. I jumped up, gave her a huge hug. I'm like, "Oh my God, I've been wanting to chat with you." I am not even like tears running down. I'm bawling because I knew Hallie set that up. Yeah. I never told anybody. And how in the hell for this certain wrestling meet, not even in Columbia, that I end up sitting right behind them. Had I went with other people, I wouldn't have sat there.
Sure.
Had Chase not wrestled their son, we would not even have spoken. Had I not said he lost his sister and her age, it just never would have, we never would have crossed paths. So we had an amazing conversation about Hallie. It was just that moment, like I knew Hallie orchestrated that.
Oh, 100%
so I would cross her path.
She did. 100%. Something that we forgot to mention in our last podcast, one of the signs that happened right after Hallie passed was that your work called a team meeting like the next day.
No, I think it was about a week later. They all got together and just kind of talked about like how to support me, and they shared stories about Hallie. Because, I worked out of my home. And you think that your team members wouldn't know your kids, but Hallie would come and go all the time. And like all of our kids would pop in on video at different times. So a lot of them knew her. And anyway, they had a meeting. And when they were leaving the meeting, they had lunch brought in. They walked to the lower lobby of our global headquarters, and there's a big fountain out front, and there's this huge rainbow. And they all were like, "Well, there's Hallie. She's showing up for us, for her mom's work family."
That's crazy.
So beautiful. So it wasn't even a rainy day. Like it was just, there was just a rainbow on this fountain for everybody.
And then one of the ones that I really love is the night that she passed. There was a house she would tell me about that she was, when she was little, that you guys lived in St. Elizabeth near your parents. And she loved that house. A dream for her would have been to one day rebought that house and to have lived in it. So she absolutely loved that house. And what happened on the night that Hallie passed away?
Her bedroom light flickered off and on for a while, and it freaked the owners out.
Yeah. She likes lights.
What is happening?
From our office light to her bedroom light when she was a little girl, she flicked that thing on and off all night long, which I thought was really, really cool. Signs. They say that if you're open to them, you'll see them. We have prayed and prayed a few times. My friend Rebecca said to us in church one morning that she prayed that she would see her grandparents after they both passed in dreams, and they had come to her in dreams, and we've prayed for that. And so just in the last week, you finally had a dream with your beautiful daughter. Would you tell us about that?
Yeah, I really have not dreamt at all. Maybe it's a Xanax. I don't know.
Which is prescribed by the doctors
Yes.
because this is traumatic, okay?
Yeah. I'm just not tired. I mean, I'm emotionally and physically drained, but to just go lay down and go to sleep is just not my thing. I think your body just gets so jacked up from it all. But anyway, so I had not been dreaming at all. A couple nights ago, I woke up at 4 a.m. and I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to go back to sleep. And I don't know why that's so fearful for me. I think because the silence, and I think you're just struck with the brutal reality that you're not going to have her in your physical life anymore. So I was laying there dreading, like, oh my gosh, I hope I can go back to sleep. And I ended up going back to sleep. And in my dream, Hallie showed up, and we were at a dinner table, and Lexi was in it. Lexi was kind of sitting across from me, and Hallie just walked in. Couldn't tell you where we were at, what the room looked like, but we were sitting around a table, and Hallie sat at the end. And I said, come over here and sit by me. And it's so weird because she had long blonde hair, which I absolutely loved when she had her long blonde hair. And I just kept looking at her because she was so beautiful. And I told her she was beautiful all the time, like every other day.
It's like next level beautiful.
But it was perfection.
Kind of like your dad saw.
Yes, perfection. It was her, but beauty on a whole other level. And it was just so good to see her. We talked about the horse that she had sold. And the last thing that she said that would just really kind of stuck with me is she said the horses were the first thing to leave me. And I don't 100% know what she means by that. Like, she had 3 horses that she absolutely loved. Like, when I say that she loved her horses, it was to her core being. And I don't know where she got that from. But even I look back at her school papers, and she's kindergarten in first grade, and she wrote there she wanted to be a vet, and she loved horses. Like, it was just in her blood. So I'm not sure what that means, but it gave me peace to see her and see her so perfect. So perfect.
I love it. The final signs that we'll talk about in this week's episode are really hard. It was Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. People keep saying, well, how was it? And I'm like, it was as awful as you might have expected it was going to be. It was a Christmas that none of us will ever go, well, that was the best Christmas, because it was not. It was very clear that one of us was missing. Even when you felt like you were doing something fun or something was starting to go well, there was a cloud of sadness that just hung over our family, over our crew. And so it was a not so good Christmas in our home. But as God does, and as Hallie does, there were signs. We had one sign Christmas Eve and one sign Christmas Day. And I think it's important to talk about both of those, because Christmas is never going to be the same without Hallie, but it will hurt less. And as long as we have the signs that she's with us, I think it's really powerful. And so before we say this, and I will say this, when we opened presents on Christmas Eve, the kids wanted Hallie to be there. So we put a picture of her on a chair next to us.
With her presents.
And that was fun.
And then
With
they decided that it was a kid's idea. They were like, we have to have a spot for Hallie. And so we put this picture of her on this chair for her spot, and they put her presents there. And they decided that they would rotate between everybody to open up her presents that we had for her.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, so that's what I love. Like, the entire crew wants to keep her memory alive.
They'll miss her. We're not the same without her.
Yeah.
So Christmas Eve, we go to your mom and dad's. And one of the first signs that Hallie was with us is that Angie comes, as we've said, from a family where she's one of 7 children, and there's all kinds of grandchildren and great-grandchildren. It's a very tiny old farmhouse. It's over 100 years old, so everyone's crammed in. It's never silent there.
Oh, there's kids everywhere, running everywhere.
Crazy. But that morning, in a 2-hour time span, that's the time we allotted for that morning, 3 times it went dead silent in there.
Like stone silence.
That awkward silence where everyone's looking at each other like, ugh. And that never, ever, 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 ever happens at your mom's house because there's too many people. And everybody just knew it was Hallie's presence. Like, not sure we don't know what to say, we don't know what to do, but it was
like the second or third time, like, thanks, Hallie. Like, you love making people uncomfortable. This is the most uncomfortable, awkward scenario ever. Thank you for that, because people, you just don't know what to say or do, and everybody just feels so helpless. Like, I don't know another way to describe it. Like, you know, you want to be there for someone, but how? Like, no one can fix this.
No
one can fix it.
There's nothing you can say. I'm learning there's nothing I can say that's going to make Angie feel better. Sometimes I have to just sit in it with her, and that's what it is.
What was that quote? I put it on my phone. It was on the With You in the Weeds podcast, which I highly recommend you guys checking out.
You find the quote. John Tenen and Lynn Roush, who's been on our podcast, they've started a podcast of their own called With You in the Weeds, and really good. They're both counselors, certified counselors, and there was one talking about sadness and a lot of the grief that we're going through, and we both have found it to be incredibly powerful. So if you're looking for something, you can go to thecrossingchurch.com, search for With You in the Weeds, and this podcast on sadness is really good. And what was the quote that they said?
I had to write it down because it just, like, both of us, it just caught us like, oh my gosh, because it was at the end of the podcast and they said, sadness is the death of not having control over what has happened, and it can't be undone.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can actually move forward from sadness is to grieve.
And that, as John has told us, is the one emotion, the one thing, grief is the one thing that we voluntarily have to enter into. That's why you see people that don't enter into it because they choose not to.
It sucks. It's freaking awful. It's awful because.
And John says multiple times, I love sadness because it heals you.
Gift.
Because it heals you. It's a gift that heals you, where we're all like, okay, that's a little sadistic, John. Like, who loves sadness? But I see what he's saying. Like, if you don't go through the sadness, you will not heal. And Angie and myself and our kids are going through the sadness. We're walking the path of sadness to a new reality that we're going through. That quote really stuck out to us as we listened to their podcast.
The other thing in talking about grief, too, I came across this quote, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a powerful way to describe it, is that grief is really just love. It's all the love that you want to give, but you can't. All the unspent love that you have, like, gathers up in the corners of your eyes and the lumps in your throat and in that hollow part of your chest, which, gosh, that feels so empty that it's love with no place to go. I'm like, wow, what a
love with no place to go. Ugh.
Way to describe it, because it is. You just love them so much. And then it's like you don't even know how to give love when that person's not actually there.
Well, we haven't actually shared the sign from Christmas Eve
no,
yet.
but
We started to tell these things, but that's where we're going.
The Christmas Eve, again, goes back to take the pictures and video. I mean, I told the kids, I don't care how awful we feel. We're taking a family pic before we go to church. It's not going to feel right. It's going to be weird. It's our first, family pic without Hallie, but we're taking it. We're taking the picture. So we did that. We propped the phone up on a paper towel holder and figured out how to do it. And it was like one and done. Like, we're snapping the pic. It doesn't have to be perfect. So we go to church, and I absolutely love in church when we do the candles, and that's so powerful.
I'm sure many of you, if you go to church at the end of your Christmas Eve service, all the lights go out, you light a candle, you sing Silent Night, right? That's what churches across the world do on Christmas. Our church at the Crossing does the same thing.
And I just love what it represents of, well, I always love looking down the row and seeing all of our kids lined up, right?
Yeah.
So that's beautiful and painful because we have one missing. But I videoed Aric's candle getting lit first and then lighting mine, and then I lit Chase's, and then they all went down the row lighting each other's candles, because we also talk often about, it represents it to a whole nother level of shining Hallie's light, but just light in the darkness is Hallie. I just feel like, because I think she was really struggling, but she was still the light for so many people, and that is the bravest thing that you can do. And I feel like that's what I'm trying to do too, is in the hardest of times, how can you still be a light to other people no matter how painful it is? And so I'm videoing, and I saw it when I was videoing.
Yeah, like you could see it on the camera, and then you could look away and you wouldn't see it. Is that what you're saying?
No,
like
I'm
in
saying
real time.
real time, I saw it.
Yeah, so you would look in your camera and see it, but then if you looked away from the camera, it wasn't there, right? Fair to say?
I mean, I never really looked away because I didn't want to lose it.
I
didn't want to not see it.
Okay.
But there's a orb like flying around, and I've seen that before on pictures or videos, but this one was so unique in that it turned into a green heart.
And we go back to the last episode, the green stocking.
The green stocking, it was a green heart flying around all the kids. Not just like a little dot. Like it was a heart
It turned
shape.
into a heart, and it lasted for the entire song. So like a minute and a half, more than that. It lasted the whole way out. We sent it to our small group at church. My buddy Rob was like, I thought you were crazy until you sent the video, and oh my gosh, I have chills because it's real. We'll have to share it on our social.
I haven't posted that one yet, but I didn't even say anything to anybody initially. I just sort of kept it close to me, that it was a green heart. I mean, what in the world?
Hallie was with us in church at Christmas Eve, and that felt good. It felt good when we all saw the video and we knew that even though taking the picture before church felt awkward and being in there without her felt awkward, she was right there. And just an absolutely beautiful moment for a family on Christmas Eve that was otherwise awkward and sad. This was not a moment of joy or signs, but let's just call out that Christmas Eve was the worst night that you've had since we came home from the hospital.
It was the worst night I've ever had in my life. I mean, even the night Hallie passed, like Christmas Eve was literally the worst night ever. And I don't necessarily know why. I think, you're supposed to be so joyful and you put on you try so hard for your kids. When I went to bed that night after all the kids had went to bed, I mean, there was so much pain in my whole body that, for the first time in my life, I was like, oh my God, I don't know how I can go on from this. Like, it was so painful. I could not breathe. It's like my whole body just was like, I'm going to shut down.
Yeah, for
sure. And
sure.
it was so scary. So scary. It's so scary to feel that much pain. Like, you feel emotions that you cannot even imagine. There's no describing it. And then until you've gone through losing a child, it's just indescribable of how much pain you can actually bear.
I think I said in one of the first podcasts after Hallie passed, if I didn't, I've said it to other people. I've seen death. I've been around death. I've watched people pass. Seeing a mother lose her child in the hospital room that day, that's a scream/cry I've never heard, nor do I ever want to hear again. And then Christmas Eve was close second. It was a continuous, the crying, the hyperventilating. At one point, Angie said out loud something to the effect of,
It's too much.
It's too much. This is too much for me. And in that moment, as her husband, and not wanting to lose her for myself or the kids, I'm terrified, right? And I remember just being like, we have to do this for the kids. We have 5 other kids. We have to show up. And she cried and she cried. And it didn't matter if I gave her a Xanax. It didn't matter what I did. That crying lasted. We didn't sleep a whole lot on Christmas Eve. Didn't matter how tight I held her. It didn't matter if I let her go. The crying was hard. It was awful. It was something I don't think either one of us is ever going to forget that evening of Christmas Eve. It was hard. That was a hard night.
In the quote we ended the last podcast with, the sun will continue to rise and set. And so Christmas Day came. It's a new day. And you just get back up and put that one foot in front of the other. And we took my kids to their dads because Hallie normally was the driver. Mm-hmm. And so we took them there and hung out there and opened up gifts.
Yeah,
and that was good.
Lance Michelle offered if we wanted to stick around. So we did. We stayed, right? Gave us something to do for a little bit. And that was nice to spend time with the kids while they opened presents at Lance and Michelle. Spend some time with Lance and Michelle. It was nice.
And we had several places we could have gone, but I'm like,
everyone was offering. We have great friends, and we thank all of them.
I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And so I did lay down and sleep for a little bit. But we also both, Aric and I, are like a little bit OCD, and just our office is a mess. There's stuff everywhere. I wanted to get kind of reorganized, and there's still stuff I have to go through for Hallie's celebration of life. And there was a container that I wanted Aric to bring up that was heavy from the storage, but he's wasn't sure if I wanted to do it that day or not, but I'm like chilling on the couch and he's just trying to keep busy.
Yeah, because I don't even know that chilling's the right word. She's on the couch in a ball.
A mess.
Like, it's not a good thing. I can't say anything to her to fix it. I felt like she needed some time. And we're not a little OCD. We're a lot OCD, okay? But with that being said, I just decided, you know what? There's a little bit of snow left outside. I'm going to go clean that off. Why? I don't know. I was just angry. If I'm being honest with you, my emotion in that moment was anger that our family was missing Hallie so much, that my wife was in so much pain. I was tired. And so I just went outside and I'm shoveling the most minuscule amounts of snow off the concrete in our driveway, on our sidewalk. Then I go around to the back where I'm shoveling off around the hot tub. I mean, just dumb work, busy work is what I was doing. And I was angry. And I looked up at the sky like I did that night in the last episode in our kitchen where I said, Hallie, we're right. I looked up at the sky and in my aggressive voice, I said, Hallie Phillips, you show up and talk to your mom today. She's in so much pain and she needs you. If neighbors were outside, I'm sure they thought I was insane, but I did. And so right after that, it was like a chain of events. Right after that, I was like, well, I need a 5-gallon bucket. Did I? Probably not. I could have solved my problem with many other things, but I need a 5-gallon bucket. It's probably down in our storage area. I go to get it, and that bucket is sitting right on top of a box that I've walked by at least 12 times in the previous 7 days and never noticed the box. I take the bucket off, and it's all Hallie's stuff. Hallie's stuff from birth announcement through high school. I mean, crazy that I've walked past this box all week long. Nothing.
It's 2 separate boxes.
Right, but they're stacked on top of each other. I've walked by them all week long looking for stuff, and I haven't seen them. But I take this bucket sitting on them. I'm like, huh. So I do what I'm doing with the bucket, and in my mind, I'm processing this whole time. Do I bring these tubs up, these boxes? Do I bring these up or do I leave them? Ugh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then finally, I'm like, you know what? This day can't get any fucking worse. That was literally my thought. You know what? This day can't get fucking worse. Let's take them upstairs. So I bring them upstairs, and for the first time all day, you smiled and you laughed some.
Well, so here's the crazy thing. That's not the container I wanted you to bring up. I didn't even know I had those 2 boxes. I didn't even know that was part of our storage area, because when Lance and I got divorced, I left him some stuff, some of the kids' stuff, and I took some with me. Now, I would have had no reason to go through any of that. Like, you don't go and look back through your child's school papers.
These are school papers.
Like, you would never go through that. So I didn't know that we even had that. And I didn't know I had the box of Hallie's stuff from her senior year.
Let me just read this real quick from the first grade.
Hang on.
Okay.
So I start going through like her infant stuff and like papers from 1st and 2nd grade. And this is what he's talking about. It's so funny. I saved one, and I think she was in kindergarten, and she wrote this story.
She was never a good speller, we learned. The spelling didn't get much better even through junior high. But she had her name at the top, said, my elephant is a girl. Her name is Peanut. My elephant likes penis.
She left the T off.
Left the T off. So it was Penus. Me and my elephant like to eat penis.
So I'm laughing. And so I got a few kicks out of some stuff that I found from when she was a little kid. And then I go to her box of her diploma from high school and her hat from graduation, and just kind of going through things. And I come across this envelope, and I open it up. And let me hit pause for a second. Like, as a mom, I don't feel like you are ever 100% confident in what you're doing. There's no playbook on, well, hey, if you have a child with this type of personality in this situation, this is what you're supposed to do. And so, although I feel like I'm a really good mom, I still question myself. And especially when you lose a child, you think, could I have done more? should I have been more pushy in this area or not as pushy in this area? Like, you question yourself and you hope that you did all the right things. And I know, she's 20 years old. She'll make her own decisions. But there were decisions that she made that I was against and voiced that to her. But then you think, well, should I have even allowed it? You just start questioning yourself, and then you can go down a dark path of the what ifs. And so I'm trying not to do that. But I just feel like it naturally happens when you lose someone 100%. That you love, but especially your child, because as a mom, you feel like you're supposed to take care of them. And so anyway, so I'm struggling with that, and I find this envelope, and I open it up, and I get to it was the second paragraph.
You start bawling, and I'm like, God, we almost made it to the end.
Lost it. Like, it almost dropped me to my knees. It almost felt like when she was passing. I mean, it was what I, as a mom, needed to hear from Hallie, that she wrote in 8th grade. And so I'm going to read her letter because I think it's so profound for an 8th grader to write this letter. So the letter is, at her school in 8th grade, you write a letter to your senior self. And then when you're a senior and you're going to graduate, you open it up and read it. Now, she never let me read this letter. I knew about it. I had no idea I had it.
The fact that we found it and had it, and you were able to read this on Christmas Day. This is our big sign. This is our God Hallie showing up and saying, hey, I'm okay, and you did good, and here we go. And good luck reading this, just so you know. My goodness.
So it says, Dear Hallie Phillips, you have been expecting this letter for a long time now, and your 8th grade self is doing her best to make this letter worthwhile. You have so many goals to achieve by the time you're a senior, and it goes by fast. No matter how long it takes us to achieve our goals, I will be proud of how far we have come. Hopefully you're competing in the Show Me shows with Twister by now. You've worked hard to make it through this year with all the drama and hardships and negatives. We always seem to make it through, though, don't we? But I just want to remind you of some things I don't want you to forget. Number 1, don't forget where you come from or who you are. Stay true to you. Second thing, here's where I'm going to drop to my knees. Don't forget that your mom is always right.
You're okay.
Gosh.
You going to do it?
No, I'm going to do it.
Okay.
I'm not hard-headed.
Yes, you are.
Don't ever lose the close bond you have with her in middle school. She is your whole support system. Lastly, don't forget how important work is. The real world is tough, but you can make it through with your hard work and determination. Work is the only way you make it anywhere in this world. That's the reason you bought a horse you have saved for years and got a job working in a stable. Another important topic I want to touch base with us is your career. Don't ever let anyone talk yourself out of what you want to do. We have wanted to be a large animal vet since you can remember. Don't give up just because someone disapproves. Let that drive you. Let everything you have ever worked for drive you. Again, never lose touch of where you started out. Don't get a head too big for your shoulders, but still be proud of where you are. Let's talk about friends. It's taken us a long time to find a friend, a true friend. Don't let her go. Allison is literally your angel. She means too much to us for her to be taken away. She is a part of us. This is easier said than done, I know, but don't be afraid to get rid of the toxic people in your life. They only weigh you down. I'm not going to mention any names, but we both know who we're talking about. Speaking of meaningful people, don't lose touch with Jill, plain and simple. Don't forget about your bucket list. Go for your goals. Don't sit there and let those life opportunities pass you by. Here's another one. If you ever need advice, go to your mom. She has never failed to give you great advice or life lessons. Always go with your instincts. You're smart. You have common sense is what your mom always tells you. I can't emphasize enough how important she is to you, and don't take her for granted. I know I'm probably missing a lot of important things that we look back on this and should probably put in this letter. And I will probably have a random paragraph about last minute information. For example, I hope we decide, even though it will be a challenge, to still go into big animal veterinarian sciences. I also hope by now we can spell veterinarian correctly. We've never been super close with God or our religion, but that's another thing I don't want us to lose touch of. Don't ever forget who's been there for you and who hasn't. Who has been there through thick and thin, from the divorce of your parents to getting your first horse and rough and happy times. There's nothing more important in life than a good horse, good friends, and a family that loves you. God, it's so true, Hallie. I mean, so freaking smart. Sometimes we just need to get away and saddle up your horse and take a quiet trail ride. There isn't any problem with taking a break from the world, because when you come back to reality, we'll have a whole new and better perspective to sum up. What I want to tell you isn't all too original. I want you to stay true to who you are, not who she is, or he is, or they are, but who you are. And here's the big got ya. P.S. In quotes, John 13:7. You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. I feel like what she said in that last paragraph, sometimes you just need to get away and saddle up your horse and take a quiet trail ride. Like, that's always how I envision her right now, is like riding her horse. And that's what she did. Like, she said, you know what? I'm going to go take a quiet ride on my horse, because that gives you a whole new perspective. And then why she put that quote in there?
I mean,
it's amazing.
A 14-year-old girl who knows she's struggling with her faith writes John 13, verse 7. Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." We've been asking ourselves for the last month, why, God, why? And at 14, she's writing about it. That's a sign from God. It's a sign from Jesus that she's with him, that she's okay. It's a sign from Hallie for us to help find that letter that we didn't even know we had on Christmas Day when we're at our worst.
And you using your aggressive voice with her.
You get mad at me when I use my aggressive voice, but good things happen when a father uses the aggressive voice.
But I had my worst night ever, but ever since I keep this letter next to my bed, because if I ever get into like doubt, I reread it, because some people can tell you that you're a great mom, but like to actually read her words that she wrote is like what I needed, and I can breathe a little easier at night. I haven't had like a full-on overwhelmed, like god-awful night like I did on Christmas Eve since then. It is what her mama needed to hear.
It's beautiful to see that.
That is more than just a sign. Like, I know she is in a good spot and she's with us.
We are light. That is a note that you wrote for us here in this. And I love this. We are light. That is our job moving forward, is to be light. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, when I say I feel like I'm Hallie's voice, like, that is actually everybody's responsibility in this world, is to be light. Like, that's something you can choose to do, but we need a light for other people. Like, you need to light other people's candles, even when it's hard or it feels uncomfortable. Like, sit in the suck with people, because this life is hard. But that's a choice we get to make. We might not be in control of what happens to us, but we are in control of how we shine that light and how we utilize that gift to help other people. So we're painfully aware of how short this life is here on earth. So just journey wisely.
Shine your light. Be there for others. And when you do that, it's honoring those that have gone before you, but it honors our daughter, Hallie. 2 weeks of episodes of signs that Hallie is here with us, but that she's also in a much better place, and just letting us know that on a regular basis, she is better than us. That's it for this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. We hope you have a wonderful week, and God bless. Thank you for listening to Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at blendedblessedalwaysamess.com.
Reach out to us on any of our social channels. We would love to hear from you. Have a great week.